Well now, there seems to be a new paradigm of hydrogen, and I don't know how much hydrogen I need to do what. So it's time to build some expendable rockets and test their hydrogen consumptions. What a tough job. So, connector is dropped. Quick bit of a balancing act with some medium cargoes. Medium cargoes are a good way to gauge lifting capability on your small grid, I think, because they're a medium. Large cargo containers, you're not going to be able to put smooth numbers on. You're going to be adding some smalls, you're going to be adding some mediums. Okay, battery on top. So I'm going with 3 mediums. The old paradigm was one large hydrogen tank could get 5 mediums into orbit. Just with some stains in your space nappy, you could get up to an asteroid using 5 thrusters and a couple of jets to help you up there, and a pretty nice load of cargo. So, not knowing where the new paradigm is at, I'm going with 3 mediums. They're going to be filled with cargo, so they're going to have a reasonable weight. And that'll give me an idea how much fuel I have when I get to the asteroid. If I reach it, gives me an idea of what kind of lifting power I've got compared to what sort of cargo power. So, battery is on, it's locked in position. Not going to forget to add myself a gyro this time. What else do we need? Got a crap ton of engines. So this is just going to be an experiment of fling cargo into space. I won't be going all the way to 0G, but I'll be getting so close that the ship, if it can reach our asteroid base, it can reach 0G and fart around out in 0G. Our asteroid's right on the edge of it, and you burn a lot more fuel landing on our asteroid than you do continuing on into the depths of space. So the magical question is, how many small hydrogen tanks and where to place them? The old paradigm was 1 large hydrogen, 5 cargo bays. So I'm thinking the fuel tanks are supposed to be much bigger and the engines are supposed to be a little bit more efficient. So a bunch of small tanks should now be all I need to break orbit. So I'm going to test out 5 small tanks, 5 small thrusters, and some jet engines. Jet engines can burn my battery, just hauling me straight up. So they're a cheating way to save some hydrogen, but it's a cheating method you're going to constantly use, so you may as well factor it into what you can get to space for what cost. Getting up to space with a full battery that's done nothing doesn't help you out that much. I could use an all-hydrogen ship with a tiny battery, but why not exploit the power of the jets? It's just free lift at the start. So, 5 small hydrogen tanks instead of 1 large one. Now, the tanks are not... This should be way less fuel than I was carrying before with even 1 large tank. But if the bragging power of the new patch is true and the engines are also more efficient, then I need less tanks. Fingers crossed. Hopefully I don't burn and die in a fireball. So, I've gone with the old steering engines on the connector there, which I tend to break out a fair bit. Which means I'll have to sort of plumb around them a bit for the lifting engines, but that's not uncommon either. Doesn't require much elaborate plumbing to have 5 engines. And I think I would stick with 5 small engines and upwards. I would just increase cargo rather than decreasing engines below 5 is my thinking. Don't ask me why, because my thinking on this matter is very complex, honest. Or perhaps just long-winded. So there we have it. 3 medium cargoes down the guts. Wasn't sure how I was going to mount the engine, so I oriented those medium cargoes in a few different ways in case I had to use some side access points. But it's good to have access for people standing on the ground when it eventually lands to get into the cargo. So that's all good. That configuration I'm happy with. 5 tanks, 5 thrusters. It comes down to a question of how many jets, and because I'm not as keen to die in a fireball as people actually say, I'm going to start out with 4 jets so that I can try an all-jet takeoff and then wait for a slowdown in their thrust before actually kicking in the hydrogen, and that way I am cheatingly using less hydrogen and getting more hydrogen bang for my buck that way too. Something I should have done earlier is pop that battery on recharge. The advantage of building on a connector is having it charging while you're building it and just quickly filling up those hydrogen tanks and going. The old SpaceX style fuel and go. So that'll be the next step. I'm going to load it with cargo. Watching me load it with cargo would be epically boring, so I'm going to cut that bit out and then jump you across to launching into space, which is what space engineering is all about. First, I'll show you what sort of setup I do. This is all the jets. I call them screamers because I just put them on full bore and they catapult me upwards. So I've switched them all off but put their thrust override to maximum so that when I switch them on they'll just throw me upwards. And then I'll make groups for hydrogen engines. I do wish I had a voice today. A voice would come in handy when there's a microphone in my face. So I'm going to relabel my 1 token reverse thruster so that I can find it, and all the forward ones are grouped. I'm going to make a bunch of buttons from them. Make sure I can spot my connector. It's embarrassing if you disconnect someone else's spaceship and you go to launch and you throw your engines to maximum and hit the disengage connector button and you sit there cooking and wobbling while someone else's ship falls off its spigot. That's not the sort of thing you want. So the manual override on my main lifting engines goes down the end. next to the on and off for my jets, and then there's the on off for my main engines, separated a little, on off for my reverse engine, the switch lock for my connector, and that's all the controls you need for a basic get your ass to Mars type of launch. If you're not doing anything fancier than hauling cargo to an asteroid, this is all you need bother to build and all you need bother to set up. And it is of course key not to take off straight into the underside of a Spirit of Le Monde and get your ass well and truly cooked, because that would be bad. Getting killed is bad, so don't be bad. Let it charge. Some time later. Load and go, SpaceX style. Okay. SpaceX load and go. Basically, I use a highly sophisticated hybrid of the British technique and the SpaceX technique. I sit in the ship, I load the hydrogen tanks from underground where the hydrogen is safer. I then go AFK for a cup of tea, because tea is a very important part of space travel. And all these tanks are filled up to maximum. Then I can come back, put my battery on auto. Very important part of every pre-flight. Put maybe one of these tanks onto or off stockpile for the launch. But the plan is to do a jet-powered launch, closely monitoring velocity, followed by a mid-air rocket ignition, probably straight to full thrust, I guess, in mid-air. And the passing ship has gone past. The fuel is fueled. The battery is fully charged and ready to throw us into space. With only 3 medium cargoes, what could go wrong? We're only a lightweight little ninja of a thing. Okay, so we've got one tank ready to service the second we need it. The rest I can switch in when I know they're not going to be accidentally slapped by something else. So, cranking up the engines to maximum. Engine test is go. We've got nice shiny engine thrust. We've got 100%. We're good to go. It's time to kick those jets on. We've got all our hydrogen engines off except for our sort of steering, strafing sort of ones. Screamers are on and thrusting, I can see them. Okay, we have liftoff. This boxy little pot of junk is going to space. So it's all jet power at this point, and 4 jets maxed out like this is performing admirably. I could get away with 3, I'm sure. But I want maximum acceleration. What are we at when we hit max speed? Looks like we're going to be at the 2k mark. A little past it, we're slowing down. Yep. We're decelerating at this point. They threw us up here nicely. with the hydrogen engines kicking in. Okay, so we lit the candle, we've tapered it back again. What are we cruising at? 37 kilonewtons. So, going to pop the taps on all the tanks because it doesn't sort of really matter what order, who's using what. Now that we're independent, can turn all the taps on the tanks and just play with the thruster buttons. So my braking thrust is off, so it doesn't matter about my inertial dampness. I can use my dampness for steering assist purposes. Stop me doing massive skids with those side engines. 44 kilonewtons and counting. We're down to 3/4 of gravity and dropping fast. We're punching it up high now. 11 k's up. I don't think my atmospheric engines are doing much at this point. I'm sure I'll remember that they're there. So that's a pretty easy cruise, 76% hydrogen fuel left, and we're rapidly approaching the half gravity point, which is a forgiving point to reach. Usually when your ship crashes, in my experience of hitting the ground with my face, usually your ship crashes before it reaches this point. "19 kilonewtons. Probably going to have to stay around 24. I've still got my jets on, which is wasting energy, but I've been playing with my hydrogen engines and not paying enough attention clearly. I need to set course for the asteroid and the glorious hole therein. So, it's my altitude, close to 20 k's up before I did my course adjusting that time. My gravity was down to about 1/3. So, the great thing about peculiar space engineers rockets is that they do shoot straight upwards, unlike real life rockets. And so it's a good way to get away from that gravity field, cut through it nice and fast. If you're angling through it, you're covering more distance and burning more fuel at a higher gravity. Go straight up, you get out of it nice and fast. So now I'm just about down to 20% gravity, which is nice. I've remembered about my jet engines, switched them off, and so I've got days of battery. I'll be hauling a nice full battery up to the station to contribute to the overall batteryness. So right now I'm cruising at approximately bugger all kilonewtons, on course for that asteroid. The jet engines are off and just dead weight at this point. 14 kilonewtons and at max velocity. So this is all vanilla gear on this ship. It was built using the Dummy Industries nano mods of legendariness, because I'm too lazy to build without it, but there's no mods that should actually affect this ship. I don't have any hydrogen altering mods. I don't even know if they still work, given that hydrogen's just been patched. This is a test of the new hydrogen system that's been patched in. So it's all vanilla bits. Vanilla bits and new hydrogen, a mix thereof. So 5 thrusters seems to be the minimum, and yet plenty. 6 thrusters is luxury. Once you go to 5 or 6 medium cargo bays, I think you have to think about the whole 5 or 6 thrusters question, but it also depends on how many jets you're using. By overusing jets, I think I've saved a lot of fuel, and it's possible I can get away with less thrusters with more jets, but that early acceleration, it doesn't last that long, and your hydrogen really needs to be able to do the job. So I'm reluctant to go under 5 jets. This ship could have gotten away with 4 jets because it's only 3 cargo bays, but I think from this point on I'd go with more cargo bays. I could definitely haul 4 with this many jets thrust wise. I think we just powered out of the gravity well there. We didn't have a hydrogen thrust issue. I'd be willing to try 6 small hydrogen tanks, 6 medium cargoes, and 6 thrusters, 4 jets. So at this point I can switch all my engines on, disable the whole manual control of the rear thrust, fuel saving techniques, labour saving techniques. I don't know, it's possible that tapping your forward key saves you more fuel than adjusting your thrust, who knows. I think of it as fuel saving, but it might just be labour saving because I don't have to sit there tapping my keys. I just sit back and watch my rocket fly. But anyway, I've disabled the manual override. I'm in classic rocket mode, hunting for the hole, sniffing it out, got a nose for it. There it is. Moo! Okay, throw caution into the wind, go yoinking straight into the wall, it's all good. Get my ass in there. Where am I? 21% hydrogen. That's practically a whole small tank. Okay, where am I? Disorienting camera fun. So yes, I'm using my last tank only now as I'm farting about inside. So if I had some kind of further fuel saving trick, I could haul this same load with one less tank, the 4 tank version. But my overall launch used bugger all. Like I had around 20% when I arrived at the asteroid even. It's using my engines like this. This is chewing it up. 12% now. The amount I used getting out of the atmosphere was pretty minimal by comparison. So yes, I just need to keep pushing the envelope. 12% left. So I did use all of the tanks to get this load here. It's the load of usual parts. There is some steel plate and some stuff in there. The cockpit's also full of cargo. Reasonably heavy. I'm carrying some stuff. Yes, 3 mediums, 5 thrusters, 4 jets, current. 12% left. It's my current new standard. Experimentation to be continued.